Thank you. We now come to the front bench speeches. David Linden for the SNP.
Thank you very much, Mr Baldwin. It's a great pleasure to see you in the chair for this morning's debate. I want to start, as others have done, by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Gillingham and Rainham, in not just securing today's debate, but also for all of his work in his role as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy. And at this juncture, and with your forbearance, Mr Baldwin, I also want to pay tribute to Mervyn Thomas, who stood down just earlier this year as Chief Executive of Christian Solidarity Worldwide, where he served with distinction in that organisation for 40 years. I think most of us who work in the kind of fields of FORB know just how much of a titan Mervyn Thomas is in this particular field, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of all members when I wish him well for whatever comes next. Now, we've had an excellent debate this morning with contributions from honourable members representing East Kilbride, Straven and Lesmahago, Congleton, Coventry North West, Wakefield, Strangford and, of course, Rother Valley. And I'd say that throughout my time as an MP, religious freedom has been an issue that's been very close to my heart, and certainly that of my constituents. But during this time, and long before that, there's one image that's always stayed with me, and it came from Egypt's Tahrir Square in 2011, when Christians formed a kind of a human shield, essentially, around Muslims who were on their hands and knees praying. And that, for me, is the very essence of what freedom of religion and belief is all about. It's about people of different faiths or no faiths whatsoever coming together and respecting each other and upholding that. And it's not just some sort of romantic idea, because it's something that's enshrined in the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's remember it says, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in the community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship and observance. Now, the freedom of religion is a fundamental human right, and one that we should all honour and protect. And it's debates like this that make me, a Scottish Nationalist MP, it does not make me proud to be a Westminster MP a lot of the time. This is one of the few occasions when we come together and we reaffirm that absolute belief in unity in that. But during the 2019 backbench debate on this very topic, I offered my support for the Bishop of Truro's report and all its recommendations, and of course the support of my own party as well. And we are, like others, committed to ensuring that religious freedom is observed around the globe, and that the recommendations of the report are implemented in full to attain that goal. As the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Gillingham and Rainham, has set out, 17 out of 22 of the recommendations made in the Bishop of Truro's report have been implemented or are in the process of being implemented, and I know that all of us in the House want to see it being implemented as quickly as possible. But one issue that I want to raise today with the Minister is the fact that there has not been a replacement for the Honourable Gentleman from Gillingham and Rainham as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy. I do think that this is a crucial role, and I would urge the Government to fill that position as soon as possible to ensure that this vital work can continue. And in all seriousness, and I appreciate that as a Nationalist MP that the Prime Minister is unlikely to take advice from me, and probably rightly so on many occasions, but the one bit of advice that I would genuinely offer to the Government, and I do it with all sincerity, is if it is considering appointing another MP to be the Special Envoy, that it looks very seriously at considering my honourable friend, the member for Strangford, who does so much work in this field. And we know there are examples of MPs from other parties being appointed as Special Envoys, but I would ask the Minister to take that back to the Prime Minister and consider that somebody like our honourable friend, who is such a champion in this field, I think would be an excellent candidate for the post. Now, turning now to the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19 has negatively impacted Christian communities across the globe, with persecution continuing during this public health crisis. And I've continued, as I do, working closely with Christian Solidarity Worldwide during the pandemic, and have been in touch with a contact of theirs in Uttar Pradesh in India. Now, the contact, who I'll be keeping anonymous for their safety, informed me of violent attacks that have taken place against Christians worshipping. I've been told that in 2019 there were 60 cases of persecution, and by September this year already 45 cases have taken place, even with COVID-19 lockdown measures in place. My contact also described how some police officers in the region have been biased against the Christian community, and it's often a lottery depending on which police officer receives the call as to how those Christians who are worshipping will be treated. If the officer, for example, is sympathetic to the Christian faith, then they'll respond to the call. If not, then often there is no response to the attack, meaning that violent criminals often go without punishment. And I know that the government's probably fed up of hearing me complain about the situation in India, but I think there's the real moment that we've got to take stock of the fact that this is the world's largest democracy, an emerging middle class, but we are seeing a rapid rise in terms of the World Watch List of India, and I would once again ask the government to make sure that it is raising this with authorities in India. But around the globe, everyone should be free to worship without fear or persecution, and it's vital that this government does everything in its power to condemn the violent attacks against those worshipping and work together to protect freedom of religion. And I'm glad that honourable friends from Congleton and Strangford, as well as others, have made reference to the trade bill. That there is no doubt whatsoever that as the United Kingdom goes into global Britain and tries to kind of find this new space on the world stage, it does have an opportunity to make sure that in trade negotiations these issues are not missed out, because I appreciate that in a trade negotiation you don't want to raise things that are perhaps going to be controversial, but we should never lose sight of the fact that freedom of religion and belief in human rights should be at the top of the agenda. But we are now faced with a unique moment in history. Between Brexit talks and the pandemic, it is vital that we continue to protect human rights and freedom of religion. And it's absolutely crucial that during this crisis we continue to work towards ensuring that the persecution of all religions and those who have no religion at all ends, and that everyone around the globe is free to worship without fear. And so at this unique moment of history that we find ourselves in, we cannot lose sight of the values and what means most to us, including the core belief that everyone, absolutely everyone, should have the freedom to worship without fear.
Thank you. Stephen Dempsey.